Imagine a perfect sunny day. Maybe you're out enjoying the warmth, feeling good, only to realize later that familiar, uncomfortable tingle, sunburn setting in. We all know that feeling.
We definitely do.
But here's a surprising question for you. What about pigs? Because as it turns out, sunburn in swine isn't just some quirky, little-known fact.
Not at all.
It's actually a very real, often underestimated problem that goes way beyond just a simple red patch on their skin.
That's right.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into solar dermatitis. That's the clinical term for sunburn in pigs. And this topic is actually growing in relevance, isn't it? Especially as more swine operations adopt outdoor or pasture-based systems.
Yeah, it really is. It's not just like a cosmetic issue we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a serious welfare and production concern for these animals.
So our mission today is to kind of cut through the complexity, yeah.
Exactly. We want to equip you with a really comprehensive understanding of why pigs get sunburned, what it actually looks like, how it impacts them far beyond just the skin, and, most importantly, how you can prevent it. We'll be pulling key insights from various expert sources, basically giving you a shortcut to being truly well-informed on this crucial animal health topic.
Great. Okay, so let's unpack this underappreciated problem then. When we talk about solar dermatitis in pigs, we're really talking about a painful injury, right? Where sunlight literally damages their cells.
It's a phototoxic injury, and it's often underestimated just how serious this can be for them.
So the impact goes beyond just like red skin.
Oh, much further. The key insight here is that it can lead to systemic illness, meaning problems throughout their whole body.
Wow.
Yeah, secondary infections can set in easily, and it causes significant economic losses for producers. Think about things like compromised reproductive performance in sows or boars,
Right.
or reduced growth rates in the pigs going to market. These are very real concerns.
And you mentioned the shift to outdoor systems.
Exactly. As more operations move towards outdoor or pasture access, understanding and preventing sunburn becomes even more critical for the overall health and productivity of the herd.
So what exactly is happening at the skin level when a pig gets sunburned? It's this overexposure to UV radiation, specifically UVA and UVB light.
That's the core of it. You could think of UV light as the attacker. Now, UVB, that's the one causing the immediate sharp damage. It directly hits the DNA in the epidermis, the top layer of skin.
Okay.
That leads to what scientists call sunburn cells and kicks off that initial painful inflammatory reaction, the redness and heat.
And UVA, is that different?
It is. UVA has a longer wavelength, so it penetrates deeper down into the dermis. While it might not cause that immediate redness, it generates these unstable molecules called reactive oxygen species, or ROS.
ROS, okay.
Think of them like tiny wrecking balls inside the cells. They contribute to more damage and something called oxidative stress.
So it's a double whammy from the sun.
Pretty much. This combined attack from both UVA and UVB triggers a complex inflammatory response, leading to those classic signs we recognize. Erythema, which is the redness, and edema, the swelling.
And it's a direct injury.
Absolutely. It's a direct, dose-dependent injury confined mostly to those superficial skin layers. More sun equals a worse burn. Simple as that.
Given that sun's impact, it really begs the question, why are pigs specifically so uniquely vulnerable? It seems like they get hit harder than some other animal.
They do, and it's not just random. There are some critical inherent factors at play. First off, pigmentation, or rather the lack of it in many breeds.
Ah, the pink pigs.
Exactly. Pigs with white or light-colored skin, think breeds like large white, which is also called Yorkshire Landrace or Chester white. They have very little melanin.
And melanin is the protective pigment.
Precisely. It's like a built-in sunscreen. Without much melanin, they're highly susceptible to UV damage.
So darker pigs are better off.
Generally, yes. Pigmented breeds like the Duroc, Hampshire, and Berkshire have much more natural protection because of their melanin. That's why choosing these breeds can actually be a primary genetic strategy for prevention, especially if you're planning an outdoor system.
Okay, so pigmentation is one factor. What else?
Second, hair coat. Pigs have very sparse hair compared to, say, cattle or sheep.
Right. Not much cover there.
Exactly. It offers minimal physical protection from the sun. And third, age is a factor.
Younger ones are more sensitive.
Yeah, young pigs, particularly suckling and weanling piglets, are definitely more vulnerable. Their skin is just thinner and more delicate.
Makes sense.
And it's worth noting, even in those darker pigmented breeds, any non-pigmented patches they might have often on the back, shoulders, or especially the ears, those areas remain susceptible.
Okay, that covers the physical stuff, but you mentioned something about behavior earlier.
Yes, and this is fascinating. There's a sort of behavioral conflict at play. Pigs can't sweat. right? That's crucial.
Right, they wallow in mud instead.
Exactly. To cool down, they instinctively seek external methods. Wallowing is a big one, or sometimes just lying very still to minimize heat production. Now, if there's no adequate shade or suitable mud wallows available,
Then they're stuck.
they're stuck trying to cool down, often by lying still, but doing so out in the open sun. So this innate behavior, just trying to regulate their temperature, actually forces a pig that lacks natural UV protection into prolonged, damaging sun exposure.
Wow, it's like their own instincts work against them in the wrong environment.
It's a really profound physiological vulnerability. Their survival instinct to cool down clashes directly with their lack of protection from the sun.
And I imagine that repeated exposure, even if it's not a severe burn each time, adds up.
Absolutely, that vulnerability has a long shadow. Repeated, even what seems like mild sublethal sun exposure leads to chronic solar dermatitis. This causes irreversible skin damage.
What does that look like?
Their skin can become thickened, kind of leathery, wrinkled, and inelastic. You might also see hyperkeratosis, which is a buildup of tough, scaly skin.
Okay.
And a really characteristic sign of this long-term damage is something called actinic comedones.
Actinic comedones, what are those?
They're essentially permanent, dilated hair follicles that get filled with dark, keratinous debris, almost like really stubborn sun-induced blackheads, if you want an analogy.
Gotcha. So visible permanent changes.
Yes. But the most serious long-term consequence, really, is the risk of cancer.
Ah, right, the DNA damage.
Exactly. That cumulative DNA damage from UV exposure is mutagenic. It causes mutations. This creates a precancerous state in the skin cells. There's a well-established risk of these damaged cells eventually transforming into tumors.
Like what kind of tumors?
Things like squamous cell carcinoma are common, or even more aggressive vascular cancers, like hemangioma or hemangiosarcoma. This risk is particularly high for those light-colored breeds we talked about.
So it really underlines that this isn't just a superficial issue, it's a genuine health threat long term.
Absolutely. It goes way beyond cosmetics or temporary discomfort.
Okay, so let's shift to spotting it. What are the signs we should be looking for, both acute and chronic?
Right. In acute cases, a fresh sunburn signs can appear pretty quickly, often within hours of exposure.
What's the first thing you'd notice?
You'll see that erythema, the redness and edema or swelling. The affected skin will usually feel hot and be painful to the touch.
And it appears in specific places.
Typically, yes. The lesions are usually very distinct, sharply demarcated, and confined to those non-pigmented sun-exposed areas. Think the top of the back, the shoulders, and definitely the ears. Ears are very common.
What about really bad burns?
In severe cases, it can progress to vesiculation that's blister formation. These blisters can rupture, leading to peeling and desquamation, where the skin starts to shed off in sheets.
Ouch. Okay, and the chronic changes. We mentioned the thick skin and those comedones.
Exactly. For chronic changes, you'll see that thickened, wrinkled, maybe scaling skin, along with those characteristic actinic comedones we discussed. The skin just looks weathered and permanently damaged.
But here's something really interesting you mentioned earlier, the behavioral signs. Sometimes those show up first.
Yes, and this is really key for anyone managing pigs outdoors. Behavioral changes are often the very first, and sometimes the most obvious, signs that a pig is suffering from sunburn pain.
Like what?
There's a particularly distinctive behavior often described as dipping. The pig might suddenly squeal, arch its back downwards sharply like a dip, or even abruptly drop down onto its chest, its sternum, while it's walking.
Why do they do that?
It seems to be an involuntary reaction to a sudden jolt of intense pain on their sunburnt back. It's considered pretty pathognomonic, meaning it's a very specific indicator for solar dermatitis pain.
Wow. Any other behaviors?
You'll also see more general signs of pain and discomfort. Lethargy, just not wanting to move much, maybe a reduced appetite.
And breeding animals?
Right. In breeding operations, affected sows might flat out refuse to let the boar mount them because their back is just too painful.
Okay. So diagnosis seems fairly straightforward if you see these signs and know they've been in the sun.
Often, yes. Diagnosis is typically based on that history of sun exposure combined with a physical exam showing those characteristic lesions confined to the non-pigmented dorsal, meaning upper areas.
What about biopsies?
A skin biopsy might be done if you suspect chronic changes, or especially if you're worried about those precancerous or cancerous developments. The biopsy can confirm things like epidermal necrosis, skin cell death, or show those specific sunburn cells under the microscope, or changes like solar elastosis, which is sun-induced damage to the elastic fibers in the skin.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that sounds similar but is actually quite different. Photosensitization. How do we tell that apart from a regular sunburn? This seems like a crucial distinction.
It absolutely is, and it's critical for figuring out the right management strategy. While both conditions are triggered by sunlight and primarily affect non-pigmented skin, the underlying causes are vastly different. Sunburn, or solar dermatitis, points to a failure in environmental protection, not enough shade, basically. Photosensitization, on the other hand, indicates a systemic issue, something going on inside the pig's body.
So what's happening in photosensitization?
In photosensitization, there's a photodynamic agent, a substance that reacts to light circulating within the pig's skin. When sunlight hits it, it triggers a much more severe reaction.
Where do these agents come from?
It can happen in two main ways. There's primary photosensitization, where the pig ingests or absorbs a preformed photodynamic agent. This could be from certain plants, things like parsnip, buckwheat, St. John's wort, or classic examples, or even some medications like certain antibiotics, such as tetracyclines or sulfonamides.
So something they ate or were given.
Correct. The agent gets into their bloodstream, reaches the skin, and sunlight activates it. The other type, which is actually more common in livestock generally, is hepatogenous, or secondary photosensitization.
Hepato meaning liver.
Exactly. This results from compromised liver function. Normally, the liver breaks down phytoerythrin, which is a byproduct of chlorophyll digestion from green plants. If the liver isn't working properly, phytoerythrin builds up, circulates to the skin, and boom, it acts as a photodynamic agent when exposed to sun.
Okay, different mechanisms, but how would that look different on the pig compared to sunburn?
This is where it gets clinically distinct, and it's quite fascinating. Photosensitization typically causes a much more severe dermatitis than sunburn.
More severe how?
Think really marked edema or swelling, often with weeping or oozing skin. You get extensive crusting, sometimes deep tissue necrosis meaning tissue death, and even sloughing off of large areas of skin. It just looks dramatically worse.
Anything else?
Yes, a huge differentiator is itching, or pruritus. Intense itching is a hallmark of photosensitization. Pigs will be rubbing, scratching, trying desperately to relieve it. This is generally absent in sunburns, where pain, not itch, is the dominant sensation.
Pain versus itch, that's a key difference.
A very key difference. And another clue, specifically for the hepatogenous type, is to look for other signs of liver failure. The most obvious might be icterus, or jaundice, a yellowish discoloration of the skin, gums, or the whites of the eyes. You wouldn't see that with a simple sunburn.
So if you suspect photosensitization, the investigation goes beyond just looking at the skin.
Absolutely. You'd need to dig into the history, any potential exposure to those problematic plants or drugs. You'd likely run blood tests, specifically checking serum biochemistry for elevated liver enzymes. And you'd need a thorough environmental assessment to look for potential sources of toxins. It's a different diagnostic pathway.
Okay, that distinction is really clear now. Let's go back to sunburn, though. We've talked about the skin, but you mentioned systemic effects. What happens beyond the skin?
Right. The consequences can be quite far-reaching, particularly impacting production and reproduction.
How does a skin burn affect something like pregnancy?
It's essentially a stress-mediated hormonal event. The intense pain and widespread inflammation from a severe sunburn act as a major stressor. This triggers the release of certain compounds in the body, particularly prostaglandins like PGF2-alpha.
And that's bad for pregnancy.
It can be.
Yeah.
PGF2-alpha is a potent luteolytic agent, meaning it can break down the corpus luteum, the structure in the ovary that produces progesterone, the hormone essential for maintaining pregnancy.
So the stress causes hormone levels to drop.
Exactly. If progesterone levels fall, it can lead to the regression of the corpus lutea, resulting in either abortion or the reabsorption of early embryos.
Wow. Is this common?
It's recognized as an often overlooked contributor to what farmers sometimes call seasonal infertility. While heat stress is the major factor in that, severe sunburn can definitely play a role that sometimes gets missed.
What about sows that are nursing piglets?
For lactating sows, the pain and discomfort can lead to reduced feed intake. If she's not eating enough, that obviously compromises her milk production.
Which affects the piglets.
Directly. Lower milk means lower piglet growth rates. Plus, a sow with a painfully burnt back or underside might be very reluctant to stand or lie down comfortably to let the piglet suckle.
And boars. Does it affect them too?
Yes, definitely. For working boars, the pain from sunburn, especially on their back or flanks, can immediately crush their libido. They might completely refuse to mount a sow for breeding.
Makes sense. And for the pigs being raised for meat, the growers and finishers.
For them, it's primarily about growth performance. That pain and associated anorexia, meaning they don't want to eat directly, translates to lower average daily gain, or ADG.
So they grow slower.
Slower growth, and usually poorer feed conversion ratios, FCR, meaning they eat more feed for every pound of gain. Ultimately, this increases the number of days it takes them to reach market weight, which costs the producer time and money.
So the impacts really ripple outwards from that initial burn.
They really do. Welfare, reproduction, growth, it hits all aspects.
Okay, so if a pig does get sunburned, what can be done? What's the treatment approach?
It's important to understand that treatment is primarily supportive and palliative. There's no magic cure for the initial UV damage itself. It's already happened. The focus is on managing the consequences and making the pig comfortable.
First step, get them out of the sun.
Absolutely critical first step. Immediately move affected pigs into deep shade, or preferably indoors, away from any further UV exposure.
Then cooling them down.
Yes. Cooling measures are important. Applying cool, wet towels gently to the burnt areas can help. A gentle misting with tepid water can also provide relief through evaporation.
Tepid, not cold.
Right. Avoid ice or very cold water, as that can cause shock or further skin damage. Some sources mention diluted vinegar can also help with evaporative cooling, but gentle water is usually sufficient.
And hydration.
Crucial. Ensure they have constant access to fresh, clean water. In severe cases where they might be dehydrated, oral electrolyte solutions can be beneficial.
What about medications for the pain and inflammation?
Yes, pharmacological management is key. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. NSAIDs, like flunixamegalamine or ketoprofen, are commonly used to manage pain and reduce inflammation.
Are steroids ever used?
Sometimes, yes. Corticosteroids like dexamethasone might be considered for very severe widespread inflammation, but their use should generally be judicious and short-term due to potential side effects. It's a veterinary decision.
What about things to put directly on the skin? Topical treatments?
Soothing agents can help. Things like aloe vera gel, calamine lotion, or just neutral oils or veterinary emollients like bag balm, that sort of thing, can provide some comfort and moisture.
What if the skin is broken or blistered?
If there are open wounds or ruptured blisters, you need to prevent infection. Gentle cleansing with a mild antiseptic solution, like dilute chlorhexidine, might be needed.
And secondary infections, you mentioned those earlier.
Yes, there's definitely a risk of bacteria invading that compromised skin barrier. If a secondary bacterial skin infection known as pyoderma develops, you might see pus or worsening inflammation. Then systemic antibiotics prescribed by a vet would be necessary.
Okay, so treatment is about managing the aftermath, but it sounds like prevention is really where the focus should be.
Unequivocally, prevention is by far the most effective, the most humane, and the most economical strategy. It really requires an integrated, multifaceted approach.
What's the number one thing? Shade.
Shade is the most fundamental component. Absolutely non-negotiable for pigs outdoors.
What kind of shade works best?
It can be natural shade from trees, if available and sufficient. Or, more commonly, artificial shade structures are needed. These could be permanent pole structures, hoop houses, or even portable canopies.
Any design tips for artificial shade?
Key things are providing sufficient space so all pigs can lie in the shade comfortably without crowding. Using reflective roofing materials like white paint, aluminum, or galvanized steel helps minimize heat absorption.
What about shade cloth?
Shade cloth is a great option. Look for UV-resistant shade cloth that provides a high percentage of block, typically 70–80% or even higher. This offers substantial UV protection while still allowing for some airflow. And good ventilation in any shade structure is critical to prevent heat buildup underneath.
Right, don't want to trade sunburn for heat stroke.
Precisely. Another crucial element for prevention is encouraging natural behaviors, like wallowing.
The mud bath.
Exactly. Wallowing serves a vital dual function for pigs. Firstly, it provides evaporative cooling, which, as we know, they desperately need since they can't sweat effectively.
And
Secondly, the dried mud acts as a fantastic physical sunblock. It literally coats their skin.
So providing wallows is a good strategy.
An excellent one.
Yep.
But they need to be managed properly. A wallow should be large enough to accommodate all the pigs that might want to use them at once. The consistency should be right thick, like emulsion paint, not watery and not dried out.
Keep them topped up.
Replenish daily, usually with water, to maintain that muddy consistency. And hygiene is important. Locate them away from feeding and watering areas to minimize contamination, and manage them to prevent them becoming stagnant pits.
Beyond shade and wallows, what about general management?
Smart husbandry and environmental controls play a big role. One simple strategy is timing of access. If possible, limit outdoor access during the hours of peak UV intensity, typically something like 9 or 10 a.m. through to 4 or 5 p.m., depending on location and season.
And for pigs moving outdoors for the first time.
Acclimatization is really important. If you're moving pigs from indoor housing to an outdoor environment, do it gradually. Introduce them for short periods initially, perhaps during the morning or late afternoon, allowing their skin some time to adapt, rather than just putting them out in the midday sun on day one.
What about actual sunscreen? Can you use that on pigs?
Topical protectants can be considered an ancillary tool, sort of an extra layer of protection. They might be useful for particularly high-risk individuals like a sow with very sensitive skin, or in situations where providing adequate shade or wallows is temporarily challenging.
What kind should be used? Can you just use human sunscreen?
You need to be very careful here. Select products that are specifically non-toxic and safe for pigs, waterproof if possible, and have a high SPF like 30+. Crucially, you must avoid human sunscreens containing zinc oxide.
Why zinc oxide?
Zinc oxide is common in human mineral sunscreens, but it can cause zinc toxicity if pigs ingest it, which they might do by licking it off themselves or others. Salicylates, found in some sunscreens, should also be avoided. Always check labels or consult a vet.
How do you apply it?
Apply it liberally to those most vulnerable areas, the ears, snout, top of the back, and shoulders. And remember, like with humans, reapplication will be needed, especially if they're wallowing or getting wet. It's labor-intensive.
Seems like focusing on shade and wallows is more practical.
Generally, yes. Environmental modifications are the foundation. And let's not forget genetic selection, which we touched on earlier.
Using the darker breeds.
Right. If you're designing an outdoor or pasture-based system from scratch, consciously selecting pigmented breeds like Duroc or Berkshire is a primary genetic strategy to build in natural protection from the start.
So it's not just one thing, is it? It's combining strategies.
Exactly. An effective prevention program is almost always a holistic system. It combines multiple strategies, maybe robust shade structures, plus well-managed wallows, to address both the pig's need for thermoregulation, staying cool, and their need for UV protection. You have to tackle both.
Okay, so let's recap the key takeaways here. Solar dermatitis, or sunburn, in pigs is a significant welfare and production issue. Definitely more than just skin deep.
Right, it stems from their unique vulnerabilities, lack of pigment in many breeds, sparse hair, and that behavioral conflict around cooling.
And it causes direct skin damage, potential long-term health risks like cancer, and has knock-on effects on reproduction and growth.
Don't forget the crucial difference between sunburn, which is environmental, and photosensitization, which indicates an underlying systemic issue, often plants, drugs, or liver problems.
And the best approach is absolutely prevention.
Without a doubt. Proactive prevention through environmental modifications, primarily shade and wallows, plus smart husbandry, and maybe careful genetic selection, is the most effective and humane path.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I think this deep dive into something as specific as porcine sunburn actually illuminates a broader truth about animal welfare, doesn't it?
It really does.
It highlights that truly understanding an animal's innate physiology, how its body works, and its natural behaviors is absolutely key. It's essential for designing environments where they can not only survive, but actually thrive.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Think about how many of the solutions we discussed for pigs seeking shade, using protective barriers like mud, or maybe even sunscreen analogs, understanding their vulnerabilities based on skin type.
They mirror things we do for ourselves.
Exactly. It mirrors practices we might take for our own well-being when out in the sun. It's a powerful reminder, perhaps, that sometimes the most insightful lessons about care and environment come from paying close attention to the needs of the animals we share the planet with. Something to think about.